We are back, and today we're going to talk some hoops, specifically Grizzly basketball hoops. Now, full disclosure, when we're talking about the Grizzly season, I call myself a Grizzlies fan because I was following John Morant right out from college and kind of hooked on to the Grizzlies and really followed them for the past 4 or so years, however many years he's been in the league. I guess 5 now. Insane. But, anywho, when I'm talking about the Grizzlies this year, I haven't really watched a ton of them because they haven't been on prime time, because they haven't had Ja, and because I don't have access to non-primetime games at the moment that aren't in my local area, which is downsides of being a fan of a team that's not in your area. But I've been following them, and I think last night, at least when I'm recording it, it was last night, when Ja came back, you saw a new team. There were some weak elements, and I'll dive into that, but I feel like it was interesting to see how much of an impact Ja had and Ja has on that team. So let's jump right in. So last night, the Grizzlies beat the Pelicans 115-113 off of the game-winning shot by Ja Morant, who had 34 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, followed by Desmond Bane, who ended with 21 points, 5 assists, 1 rebound, and then Jaren Jackson, the other part of the big three, had 24 points and 6 rebounds. It was a great game. I think we didn't see a lot of Ja in the first half, so you kind of thought maybe there was going to be some sort of like minutes restriction, because he came out like pretty soon in the first quarter, but then he played almost like the whole second half, it felt like, when they were making that comeback. But I think the main difference right now between Ja before and Ja after is like there is no, when Ja's not on the floor, there's no one setting the pace, there's no one setting the floor. It's just whoever has the ball, they're bringing it up, and everyone's doing what they do best to try to, score points. And it's just like when you have injuries like Marcus Smart injured, you trade away Tyus Jones, Derrick Rose is injured a lot, and he's obviously not the player that, he's not Derrick Rose anymore. He's a fine point guard at this point in his career, but you're not going to rely on him for much. And it's just when Ja got off the floor, it was just a mess. There was no order. The ball was flying around. There was turnovers. There was no scoring. There was like a 5-minute stretch of no scoring, and the Pelicans poured on the threes because that's what they do. Brandon Ingram, I don't think, it felt like he could never miss. He had 34 points as well, 6 assists and 4 rebounds. But man, it seems like every time he touched the ball, it was going in. It was pretty crazy. It looked very KD-esque, which is kind of what we talk about a lot when we talk about Brandon Ingram, just because of the tall, slim frame. It's very KD-like, and that's kind of what we saw last night. He was dominant after a not-so-dominant game from Zion the past 2 games. So he's been picking up the load, but it seemed like the Pelicans were going to run away with that. Took advantage of the non-Ja minutes, and they were able to rain down the threes and really pull ahead and make it a 19-point game and a half. And I think the key into the second half was just slowing down the pace for the Grizzlies, rolling that momentum back, chipping away, and just letting Ja work. Because when Ja gets in his lane, gets to the paint, you can't stop him. He scored pretty much every time. Another key that I noticed was the offensive rebounds. They were great on the offensive boards. Second chance points were coming to plenty. I think it was maybe 17 points off second chance points, something like that. But it was great. It's like that's what you need. Those win games. That matters. That matters a good deal, because when you're giving away those opportunities, giving away those points, and making them negatives instead of like positives, and making them turnovers or just making them fast breaks for the other team, it becomes an issue, and it makes it very hard to come back. But yeah, it was really good to see how they came back. And again, Ja was fantastic. I think the whole narrative that the Grizzlies were better without Ja, this shows why Ja matters, and he's not just a guy that can give you a highlight reel. He sets the tone for your team. If you don't have him, it's like everyone's running around with their head cut off like a chicken, and it's like no one really knows what to do. And he's not only a scorer, he can jump out the gym, but his passing was fantastic. He was when you have a guy who can make like multiple passing plays a game look like a highlight, they're like a next level playmaker. It's like I'm not saying Jas Jokic level playmaking, but it's like it has that element of man, I cannot believe he got that pass off. I cannot believe he made that pass. It's impressive, and it's I think it's an underappreciated part of his game how he gets his team involved. Like on the last play of the game, he wanted to get Jaren Jackson involved for the final shot, which everyone knew. I think everyone in the gym watching the game at home were like, "Oh, the ball is going to Ja." Like, there's no way. There's no way you can give it to anyone else after the game he was having. It was kind of like you knew this would happen. You've seen shots like this. He's done game winners like this where he just runs down the middle and scores and you can't stop him. So it's like it's a perfect game winning shot. It's like you go to that plan every time. So it was really cool. It was really cool to see. Another thing I wanted to highlight, well, maybe not highlight, but focus on was Desmond Bane's performance. And like after all is said and done, after like the second half happened, it looks a lot better than it was. But the first half, man, he was hurting the team. It felt like, I don't know the plus minus the whole thing, but it was like he was either chucking up shots, trying to do too much, turning the ball over. Um, he was just not hitting shots, and I think you notice when Bane isn't going, and when they don't have perimeter shooting going to accompany what Ja is doing, it becomes very difficult to make everything like the biggest threat possible. Because when Ja can run to the basket, do his thing, but there's also a threat of a perimeter scoring, of a threat happening behind him and around him, that makes it all the scarier because you have to keep tabs on both, and which makes one side open as well. So it's important that Bane's consistency, and he's been great in this stretch, even though the record has been poor. It's been great in this stretch, but those moments of his inconsistencies is an issue, and it's maybe an issue you address by trade. Because you can't expect everyone to be consistent 100% of the time. You have your cold streaks; it happens. Marcus Smart coming back now. He's not like the pinnacle of consistency when it comes from scoring from the perimeter, but he can make some shots. You have guys like Luke Kennard who can make some shots from the perimeter, but maybe it's something you look at. That and like a bench playmaker. I was talking today with my friend, like maybe you look at a TJ McConnell trade to kind of set the floor when he's not on the floor. Because Marcus Smart can do that, but I think you saw in Boston, they had to bring in a Derek White. They had to bring in a Malcolm Brogdon to shore that up because that was his strong suit was perimeter defense, and he can hit some shots. Like that's Marcus Smart. And he's not a bad point guard. It's just not like you want something else. And so yeah, I think the next thing to talk about is like where to go from here if you're the Grizzlies. Because you're 7-19 now. And you are 12 games under 500. You are 13th in the conference. Now you only have to get to 10, and you're like 6.5 games back from the play-in. So it's not like it's a lot. It is a lot to overcome and to get through. But I think you have to go as if you're competing. And I think if you make a run near the All-Star break, then you can really maybe buy some pieces near that trade deadline, depending on where you are, if you're like looming around that 11-10 area. I don't think you sell. I don't think you have pieces in this team. Like, they're all young and they're all growing together. I don't think you have pieces that you sell. Maybe Marcus Smart goes in a trade since he's older and he can get you some value, depending on how good or bad you are. But I think, like, what you got to focus on, how good can we be before the trade deadline, and we can reassess then. But I think Ja gives you definitely an extra heartbeat. He can rattle off games like nothing. We know we can go on streaks with this. But the defense has to be better. Pelicans were scoring at will at a point. There was like second quarter they were scoring at will. At the end of the game, it was bucket for bucket. There was very little stops happening except for like some fast breaks and whatever. But it wasn't like stops happening. Marcus Smart coming back will help with that. Possible Brandon Clark maybe coming back in not too long. That's huge. Even though Bismack's been holding it down pretty good. But I think like the center position is very, very concerning if you're the Grizzlies. So you just got to take it a game at a time. And you're a long way down, but that doesn't mean it's impossible because you know what value Ja can bring and how many wins he can add to your team. So it's just going to be one game at a time thing. So I'm super excited to continue to see how this Grizzlies team progresses, how Ja, if he stays this hot, or he's going to have some slow points probably. There's going to be some times where he's a rough game here and there because there is some rust. There is some missing 8 months of basketball. It's hard to get into game shape right away. So it's going to take some games. Like, cause he was pretty gassed last night. And I think he scored a lot of his buckets on pure adrenaline and just a will to win. But, like, that's not always sustainable consistently. So it's important to get into game shape. So he might throw a stinker in there here and there. It probably will happen. So I think you just learn to handle that and just take it a game at a time. Because right now, the team overall is not performing great, but you have the pieces to be okay. And I think it's just all about putting that together. Taylor Jenkins has been under some scrutiny lately. I think rightfully so. So it'll be interesting to see how he adjusts with Ja back and if he's able to kind of redeem himself. Because he's a good coach. He has had stretches where he's been very impressive as a coach. He's very smart. So it's just all about how he's managing that. And I think he can be better, but we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see the Grizzlies continue to play well. And hopefully we'll have some good updates soon. And I think I'll talk more about basketball in some videos. Really get some hoop talk. Kind of focus in on an individual team next time. Get these quick 12 to 15 minute videos out. Because I think that'll be good. That'll be fun. All right, well, let me know what you think. Let me know what team you want me to talk about. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Share it, please. Let's do this. Peace out.